Trees. Before COVID-19, no one really noticed our urban trees. But with the lockdown of spring 2020 silencing the city traffic, we noticed the birds. They were surprisingly loud and they were in the trees, so we noticed the trees. No one knew the names of these noisy trees, but that was okay. We could build our own taxonomies. During my lockdown walks around the streets of Sturchley, South Birmingham, I gathered together a few definitions. Pretty. Dead. Weird. Funny. Big. Small. Old. Young. The more I walked, the more trees there were, hiding in plain sight along roads and paths, in front gardens and on industrial estates. Someone should be logging these trees. No, not like that, by making a record of them. And instead of recording their name or species, perhaps we could log them by what made them interesting. Maybe we could share these trees in some way so that others might notice them too. Coincidentally, we'd just launched Walkspace, a collective of artists and writers who walk, and since all our activities had been cancelled, we needed something else to do. We noticed that we were noticing things much more. One might say we were extreme noticing. So we made a film about it, and a map, and some instructions on how to do extreme noticing.
To make a Koch snowflake, draw an equilateral triangle inside a circle. On each edge of the triangle, draw another triangle, creating a Star of David with 12 sides. On each of those sides, draw another triangle, and so on and so on. You can keep adding triangles and thus extending the length of the snowflake's edge, but it will always be contained by the circle. In the spring, we found ourselves contained by a circle drawn by the lockdown rules. We could walk and explore as long or as far as we wanted, finding fresh details in finer crenellations, but we could not leave the circle. Needless to say, we started noticing a lot of things.
How to extreme notice. You will need the following conditions. Over-familiarity with an area. The inability to leave that area. Instruction to walk outdoors every day in that area. A correctly attuned mind. In order to achieve the correct mindset, we recommend a pandemic of a novel coronavirus. This will render your health as a quantum superposition. At any point, you may or may not be infected. Previously benign actions, such as touching or speaking, may or may not now doom you. On top of this, the pandemic may or may not have destroyed the economy, which may or may not rewire society in a more equitable, caring way, or may not actualize the spectre of populist fascism. Once you have these conditions in place, walk the same route for a week or two. Note what you see.
Trees eating fences. Snake sycamore. A folded crack willow. Apple and hawthorn hybrid. Ivy eats tree. Lime tuft. Rogue poplar. Bicycle tire in a tree. Bicycle in a tree. The tree of shoes. Tree wearing sunglasses. Art Deco factory framed cherry tree. Tree tunnel. Tree portal. Tree having a hug. A song thrush can sometimes be heard here. Conifer car wash. Tree of many trunks. Leaking tree. The same poplar tree with leaves and without. Trees with deep wrinkles. Trees with silver linings. Knobbly trees. Tree that shows its age. Tree that exists in name only.
With each successive lockdown, more and more tree-related pins were adding to our growing map of Sturchley. Local people were practicing extreme noticing on their daily sanctioned government walks, It seemed we were all noticing things we had never seen before. I was now tuned into the trees and noticed that, at scale, most of our local roads had no trees at all. Compared to roads with even 1 or 2 trees, these streets felt sad and grey. Then there were the rare tree-lined streets, reminiscent of great Parisian boulevards, but in miniature, with cars parking on their routes and trees fighting their way through pavements in order to get enough water to survive. According to a statistic I found on the internet, a mature leafy tree produces as much oxygen in a season as 10 people inhale in a year. When not parked on or nobbled by overzealous council strimming, trees absorb pollution, produce oxygen, and can save the world from climate change. But our street trees often looked beleaguered, as if they were more an annoyance than a living, breathing thing deserving of care. Maybe the great COVID-19 reset would change all that. Trees would no longer be static things of no relevance. Having invaded our lockdown consciousness, they might become more real, connecting us back to nature, to things we didn't know we needed for our mental and spiritual health. By the 3rd lockdown, many of us no longer just noticed trees. They had become part of how we interacted with this strange new world. Here's a list of tree-related activities from 3 lockdowns.
Forest bathing. Forest spinning until everything is a green blur. Climbing trees. Night walks by the full moon. Sunset trees. Sunrise trees. Finding faces in trees. Hanging up bird feeders in trees. Making homemade snowflakes for the Christmas community tree.
In the year since COVID-19, we had started noticing trees and birdsong. We had started thinking about local urban trees and photographing them. We had pinned particularly weird and interesting ones on a crowdsourced survey map. We had shared this map so that others could join in with their extreme tree noticings too. We had gone in search of more greenery and realised how much nicer our roads were with street trees on. We had engaged with trees in all sorts of ways to make life better, and hopefully we had learned something about trees along the way. My personal favourite discoveries were the 3 ginkgo biloba trees in our neighbourhood. Ginkgo is the oldest tree species in the world, remarkable for its smooth fan-shaped leaves with no spines. In fact, it looks more like a 20-metre tall fern or houseplant. I also learnt that groups of trees can be shy and will avoid overlapping their branches at the crown. I learnt that there are all kinds of weird growths on trees, not all bad, but not all good either. I learnt that tree shapes are best seen in winter. And I learnt that even in the heart of the city, we have palm trees and that each one can produce up to 40,000 seeds. I started envisioning Sturchley as a palm-engulfed vista as far as the eye can see, instead of rows of terrace houses. So what's next? For Walkspace as a collective, we are also just emerging from the 3rd lockdown, and group walking and collaboration is once more back on the agenda. It's likely that one of these walks will be a weird tree walk based on our map pins. The Extreme Noticing map offers plenty of raw data for developing further works, and I've been very happy to find artists and writers through Walkspace who are also developing their own tree-related activities, from tree mindfulness and meditation practices to an urban tree pilgrimage illustrated in a zine that exhorts us to say thank you to our trees. One thing is for sure, I'll never ignore our urban trees again. They are needed more than ever for our emotional and physical health. The war poet Alfred Joyce Kilmer said, "I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree." But Ogden Nash updated this for our towns and cities. "I think that I shall never see a billboard lovely as a tree. Perhaps unless the billboards fall, I'll never see a tree at all."